Bulletin TV, kitambulisho Katoliki.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Focus. I'm Maureen Kimani, joined by our sign language interpreter Charity Ngema. Here are the headlines making news today. The clergy, religious leaders and lay faithful gathered at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa to celebrate the legacy of St. Francis of Assisi during the Franciscan Jubilee Year Symposium and Activities 2026. The religious leaders, led by the Archbishop of Kisumu, Most Reverend Maurice Muhatia Makumba, and the current Vice-Chancellor, Very Reverend Professor Stephen Mbogwe, reflected on St. Francis' example of radical faith, profound humility, peace and care for creation, urging Christians to embrace these values in addressing challenges facing society today. Take a listen.
For 800 years, St. Francis of Assisi has resisted being purely academicized. There is the academic Franciscan wing, which we all know, and we have had great minds, great Franciscan minds in the history of the Church. But most of the influence of St. Francis of Assisi and of the Franciscans is not the purely academic approach to St. Francis, the life of St. Francis and of the Franciscan. It is rather witness, presence, the lives of the Church, the lives of people. St. Francis of Assisi, a model for the Church, instrument of peace, instrument of unity. While inaugurating the special year of St. Francis of Assisi at the beginning of this year to celebrate the 800th anniversary of his death, Pope Leo XIV pointed out that the example of St. Francis is needed now more than before as he continues to speak in our time, not because he offers technical solutions, but because his life points to the authentic source of peace. It is for this reason that every Christian is invited, and I quote from the Pope, following the example of St. Francis of Assisi, to be a model of holiness, of life, and a constant witness of peace. There is always the temptation to admire the saint, gush over his attractive qualities, and miss what he stood for. We run the risk of losing the real Francis and replacing him with an image often of our own making. St. Francis always sought the assurance that he and his followers were on the right track.
Welcome as we gather right here at Kwea, Nairobi, to mark a historic milestone, 800 years of the enduring legacy of St. Francis of Assisi. Standing here in Kenya, Surrounded by the breathtaking landscapes of East Africa, the message of St. Francis feels remarkably close to home. As leaders of faith and community, we are called to look at his life. We are called to inspire our people to live out his lessons of radical faith, profound humility, and urgent care for our environment. Francis did not just preach the gospel, he lived it on the dusty roads of Italy, just as we are called to live it on the streets of our countries and the places where we serve. He embodied the truth of St. James 2:17, which reminds us that faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. He trusted God completely for his daily needs, reflecting Jesus' call in Matthew 6, verse 33, to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. He saw the face of God in the poor, the marginalized, and the forgotten.
From church matters, the healthcare workers' strike has entered its fourth week, with medical officers in Busia, Kakamega, and clinical officers in Makueni intensifying pressure on the government to address their grievances and implement existing agreements. Our reporter Susan Bulemi brings us the full reports.
Led by union officials Cedric Alusa and Boniface Mutobera, the medics are demanding salary increments, promotions, implementation of their collective bargaining agreement, and improved working conditions.
Ni takriban mwaka moja wakati tulipewa enhanced risk allowance, na hiyo enhanced risk allowance ilikuwa inaanza mwezi wa 7 mwaka uliopita na inaanza kuongezwa mwezi wa 7 mwaka huu. So kufikia sasa hata imeisha mwaka mmoja, wenzetu hawajaweza kupewa hiyo increased allowance, na tunaendelea kusonga kwa miaka zingine ambazo imesonga juu zaidi. So tunaona inaweza kuwa mzigo ambayo county inaweza anza kutumia kama kiegezo ya kuweza kukosa kulipa wenzetu. So tuko hapa kusimama nao ili waweze matakwa yao yaweze kusikizwa.
Swala ya kwanza ni swala ya CBA ambayo hii CBA iliongelewa na Council of Governors, wakaelewana kuwa imepitishwa, na ni wajibu wa kila county secretary kuhakikisha kuwa hii CBA imetiwa sahihi na kila county, sababu tunaelewa kuwa afya ni kitu ambacho iko devolved kwa every county. So we expect the county secretary to have signed the CBA, and up to date the CBA for Busia has not been signed. Number 2 is the issue of career guidelines. We have the approved career guidelines by the Public Service Commission that were decentralized to all county governments to implement fully. That is from May 2024. But as we speak, in Busia County, the career guidelines have not been implemented. There has been an increment of basic salaries for civil servants, including county government employees, which includes clinical officers. And specifically, we have the phase 3 and phase 4 that was only implemented recently, but unfortunately we still have arrears of 19 months that are yet to be paid. Na kufikia sasa hivi hakuna solution ambayo yote imepatikana, especially kwa county ya Busia.
In Makueni County, the clinical officers are demanding better terms and career progression, including the creation of a director of clinical services position.
We looked at things that have almost zero cost. Like, for example, giving or establishing the director clinical services, which is the operationalization of the office of the officer that is supposed to lead clinical officers in line with the career guidelines of May 2024, which was adopted by the cabinet in Makueni County. I want to request His Excellency to give guidance, just the same way he did yesterday, to give guidance that we now agree on the short-term deliverables, starting with the operationalization of the Office of the Director Clinical Services, paying now the risk allowance at 7,000 from 3,000, which is an enhancement that has been done by the CBA they signed yesterday, and also the arrears thereof, which have been accrued from the last financial year when the Council of Governors put to paper the return to work formula in January.
They also want full implementation of the Public Service Commission's career guidelines, backdated to May 8, 2024, as well as the
Cabinet approved or accepted to use the career guidelines for clinical officers as signed 8th May 2024. But during its implementation, a task force was formed by the CS, Dr. Chambi. And Dr. Chambi is doing so good for us in healthcare. But we are saying sometimes we are seeing a lot of shortfalls. He gives guidance, he offers direction with very good will. But those technocrats who are supposed to go and implement, either because of deliberate intentions, come up with raw data that does not offer permanent solution.
Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
Reporting for Catholic Focus, Capuchin TV, I'm Susan Bulemi.
Moving on, residents of Lukosi village in Ikolomani constituency, Kakamega County, are calling for government intervention following the prolonged closure of a mining company along the Yala River, which they say has disrupted livelihoods and worsened economic hardships in the area. Nancy Kajuju reports.
The residents say the closure of the mining operations has had a ripple effect on the local economy, with several businesses that depended on the mining activities struggling to survive. They say many young people who relied on the company for employment have also been left without a source of income, making it increasingly difficult for families to meet their daily needs.
Watoto wetu walikuwa wanapata kutoka huko pesa, lakini vile walifunga wakikucha hapa, tunataka tusaidie vile watoto hao watakula.
Hii mradi ninatoka irudishwe, ikuwa ya kusaidia sisi, sababu tuko shida sana upanda ya chakula na hospitali wanakuletea. Sasa hawa ndio wanakushikilia, wanaleta chakula ya kusaidia sisi, hata watoto wanakubali hata tusomeshea.
Isikwame. Tangu ifungwe tumepata shida nyingi sana. Hata wajane kukula ni shida, watoto kusoma ni shida. Watoto wenye walikuwa wanafanya kazi huko kwa mto kwa hii kampuni wote wako tu hawana ile chakula yao ya kila siku. Wanapata shida kabisa.
The company was shut down in 2024 over allegations that it was operating without the required license. However, the management maintains that it has since complied with the government's requirements and is calling for the reopening of its operations.
There was an allegation that we don't have right papers according to the law of Kenya. Lakini tumekuwa tukifuatilia right papers and documents since we started, that is in November 2024. So the whole of last year we've been using it to find the right documents. We've gone through offices kufuata sheria ya Kenya. As you know, it is very difficult because it has so many processes that needs to be done, especially by NEMA, by Water Resources Company of Kenya, and we've gave them time to do an investigation and what they require for us to get the right documents. So today, confidently, I stand here saying that we have the right documents. We have NEMA license, we have a water license, we have the RUA certificate. We pay tax, we pay to the county government, and we also pay royalties. We have complied even to the mining department.
The residents now want a lasting solution to the dispute, saying the resumption of lawful mining activities will help restore employment opportunities and revive businesses that have been affected by the closure. Reporting for Catholic Focus, Capuchin TV, I'm Nancy Kajuju.
Pupils at Kilulu Primary School in Lugari constituency, Kakamega County, are said to benefit from improved learning facilities following the launch of a project to construct 9 new classrooms to replace dilapidated mud-walled structure. Here is more on that.
The project is a joint initiative between a local church and the Constituency Development Fund, aimed at providing pupils with a safer and more conducive learning environment. Speaking during the launch, Lugari MP Nabi Nabwera said pupils had been exposed to serious risks as the walls of the old classrooms were in poor condition and could collapse at any time.
Saa 9 wametupatia mradi wa choo na wanaenda kutujengea kukarabati ofisi ya administration upya. So this will be a new school.
Tunatarajia kwamba itafanya namba ama admission za shule za watoto kwa shule zetu ziongezeke. Sisi watoto wale wamekuja kwa shule zetu wote, haitajalisha ametoka wapi, ni watoto wa Kenya.
Tumekuwa na wakati ambapo hata kuna wanafunzi wengine ambao wanakosa kuja shuleni, maana hata lisha kule nyumbani tena ni challenge. Kwa hivyo mwanafunzi anataka kuenda kufanya kibarua, hapa vile mnajua kuna gold mine, wengine wanaona kwamba enda nifanye kibarua ili niweze kujilisha. Lakini wakati huu mtoto akija shuleni anajua kwamba nitaenda huko, nitapata chakula asubuhi, nitapata chakula cha mchana, na nikitoka shule nitakuwa nimesoma vizuri.
Nataka kuwaomba pesa ya kuja kwa shule kutoka kwa serikali ikuje on time, ikuje kabla shule hazijafunguka, na ikuje kwa wakati ambao unatakana, ndio hao walimu waweze kuendesha shule zetu vizuri.
Ni jukumu letu kwa CDF kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumemaintain madarasa, tumeleta pesa, tumejenga madarasa kama ile ambaye tunafungua kwa sasa, ndiposa hao watoto wakue kwa madarasa uko juu.
The new classrooms are expected to provide a safer environment for learning while easing the challenges posed by the deteriorating structures.
As Kenya prepares for the next general election, journalists are being urged to strengthen fact-checking and make a responsible use of artificial intelligence to counter misinformation and disinformation. Media Council of Kenya Chairman Maina Mwiruri says maintaining public trust will be critical as manipulated images, misleading narratives, and AI-generated content increasingly threaten the credibility of election information. Our reporter Alan Andiva with more details.
Speaking in Ruiru, Kiambu County, while officially opening a training session for digital media practitioners, Mwiruri urged journalists to use artificial intelligence tool AI to detect manipulated content, analyze data, and enhance fact-checking rather than allowing it to undermine the integrity of news reporting. The training was organized by the Digital Journalists of Kenya under the theme, Using Artificial Intelligence AI to Enhance Content Authenticity and Build Information Credibility in the general election season.
For a media practitioner has now evolved totally into the digital age. Over 60% of journalists covering the upcoming elections will be doing it for the first time. As we approach a general election season, the roles journalists play become even more critical. Elections are moments when citizens need accurate, timely, and trustworthy information to make informed decisions. Yet, this one comes at the height of misinformation, disinformation, manipulated images, deep fakes, and misleading narratives spread just quickly. Artificial intelligence, which is at the top of this training, presents both a challenge and an opportunity. If used responsibly, AI can help journalists verify information, identify manipulated content, analyze large amounts of data, improve fact-checking, and tell stories in innovative ways. However, AI is not a substitute for professional judgment, ethics, or accountability. The human being behind the story must remain responsible for what is published. You are senior to AI. AI copies human mind.
The Digital Journalists of Kenya Chairman Andy Kagwa called on the media to play a leading role in countering hate speech and toxic political statements as newsroom and media organizations strengthen election monitoring and misinformation tracking mechanisms.
The next election will be fought also on the technological front. We'll have generated images going through our platforms. What we used to have before is that we used to have politicians planting stories in the newsroom, even commentaries. Now what we'll have is, now those images going around. So we must be cautious about what is happening around us in the era of AI, and also how to counter hate speech and toxic political discourse. Most important, we have to preserve public trust in journalism.
On the other hand, the Digital Journalists of Kenya Secretary Christine Mushira said the association is focused on training and equipping digital journalists while building their capacity to operate responsibly in the digital space.
It is important for journalists, especially the digital journalists, to actually even now have the skill and know how to navigate during that time. Now that AI has disrupted the world, as you all know, in all sectors, you know that it has rapidly changed how journalists produce, verify, and even distribute information.
As the country looks forward to the next general election, the media will have a critical role in keeping the public accurately informed. With misinformation and AI-generated content expected to shape the information landscape, journalists will be required to remain vigilant, verify information, and uphold the highest standard of accuracy and credibility. Reporting for the Catholic Focus, Capuchin TV, I'm Alan Avepandiva.
In other news, as the world grapples with rising cases of premature death linked to lifestyle changes, climate change and increased consumption of processed fruits, one family in Kathiani, Machakos County is celebrating remarkable longevity. One of its members, Lesa Muluki, has marked an extraordinary 110 years of age, with two of her sons also living beyond 80. Take a look.
How she managed to reach this age of 110, according to my assessment, is because of three things. One, diet. Two, exercise. Three, avoiding stress.
Mama yetu ni mfano wa mzazi mzuri. Kuna watu wanaweza sema wana kazi wazazi kwa sababu nini? Lakini kwetu mama yetu amekuwa a very good example ya mzazi ambaye anajali kwanza maisha yake, lakini zaidi anajali maisha ya watu wengine. Ametulea vizuri.
Alitufundisha venye wajukuu wanastahili kuishi, ama venye binadamu anastahili kuishi na watu wengine, na sio sisi tu peke yetu. Alikuwa hata majirani, mpaka saa hii, hata ukienda majirani kwetu Kathiani, utapata kila mtu ama wajukuu wenye marika yetu wanataka kuwa mfano na sisi wenye tumelelewa na mama, naye amekuwa mstari wa mbele kukutanisha watu pamoja, na tunamshukuru sana. Sio familia mingi ama wajukuu wengi wako na bahati ya kukuwa na shosh mwenye ako na miaka 110 ama 100 na hiyo ni baraka kubwa sana kwetu sisi.
Wala na dawe mwanene wana yudengulu. Tutembe okamba odagani venela yambati yake na tanange yisimbele.
Interesting story, and healthy choices and habits can shape how long we live. Lesa Muluki's 110 years are a remarkable example. And that brings us to the end of Catholic Focus. Thank you for watching. Our Maureen Kimani and our sign language interpreter has been Charity Ngema. Goodbye. See you next time.
Keep watching Capuchin TV, your staunchly Catholic identity channel. You are watching Capuchin TV. For any complaints, comments, or compliments on our programming, you can either write to us on info@capuchintv.co.ke or you can call us directly on 0717 424 866. Your complaint shall be addressed within 7 days. Remember to keep a copy of your communication with us. Keep watching Capuchin TV, your Catholic identity.